on everything we do internally at Stillworks, it always is, are we building community? Are we building community? They were doing what they were doing for money and not for purpose.
Right.
And so when you get the money just creates more problems, more headaches, more issues, more liabilities, more things that can go wrong. Mm-hmm. That's the downside of money that most people don't realize. They just think, oh, you got money, you got to be happy.
Welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real, where we have real conversations with extraordinary people in multi-million-dollar homes. Today's episode is going to be dynamic, but first I do want to give a shout out to our wonderful sponsors to allow this podcast to happen. We have Talk Construction, Fidelis Mortgage, and Allstate Insurance, as well as this podcast is funded by my own real estate business. Today we're excited to have Jonathan Bowser, the owner of Stillworks Construction, joining us today to share with us his journey through this amazing and also complicated business. He is dynamic in his own right. He has a wonderful family, and I believe he started out in the banking world, but we're going to allow him to elaborate on that. One thing I do like about him is that he's also an HBCU grad, local to most of us in Central PA, Morgan State University, and he also has a real estate development company. So we're going to get right into it. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So thank you for being here. I've known you from a distance, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think I'm older than you. I'm probably a lot older than you.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and I've actually admired how you've actually progressed. It seems like you just came on the scene out of nowhere. If I did my research correctly, the business that you've actually started with Stillworks Construction, 4 years ago?
Yes.
4 years ago, and you're doing amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so please tell us, how did that actually happen?
Stillworks Construction started about 4 years ago. Prior to that, I was one of three partners, part of Integrated Development Partners, and we started out back in 2016.
Okay.
And it was three of us that got together, and we just started off with a vision that we wanted to try to transform and shake up what we thought was a pretty dull real estate market here in Central PA. We thought that the product, the inventory, just didn't really match what we've seen through our travels other places. We were outside of Philly and DC and Baltimore and New York, and you see what the housing design looked like. You see how apartment designs are starting to look. You started to see a lot of mixed-use development. And here in Central PA, it was still kind of your cookie-cutter housing, a quarter to 3 acre, 0.3 acre lots, your very cookie-cut brown, white designs.
Yeah.
On your retail front, you just were still seeing a lot of strip centers and very EFIS, very plain looking buildings, no real design to it, nothing that would really inspire you. And so we really just started off with that. That was our whole mission. And we each had different skill sets. And so that's where the integrated part came from is, let's integrate all of our different skill sets, our resources, our knowledge into something, right? Mm-hmm. And so I stepped out on faith, left a nice job as CEO in Cumberland County at an organization. And my wife and I just built our house 5-6 months before that, and stepped out on faith, and we started and never really looked back. And so we really grew the company. One partner is an engineer, so we were doing a lot of engineering work. I was doing a lot of construction management, development work, property management work, and our other partner was more silent from a day-to-day operational perspective, but just provided a lot of value to us as an entrepreneur in his own right. And we got started. We did projects like Allenberry Resort. We did homes out that way. We had projects in Hershey. We redeveloped a big part of Stilton downtown. With a brownfield site, an 8 acre site down there. We did a couple housing projects here in Mechanicsburg. Converted a Montgomery Ward, a department store down in Hanover with mixed use with luxury apartments and first floor retail, did a big project out in Hershey. So we really just grew, and
That's
I
awesome.
didn't see that coming. I couldn't have dreamed it up. I didn't. It wasn't no roadmap to really get us there. We just took advantage of opportunities that presented itself, and we just kind of followed our gut and our intuition. And fortunate for us, it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
So as we grew that, I started to really like the construction management side of what I was doing. I really liked being able to be involved in that and working directly with subcontractors and having a more hands-on approach. As a developer, you usually hire your construction manager, your GC, and you oversee it, and you're more or less paying attention to the numbers and the schedule, but you're not in the weeds or the layers of detail of design and schedule and how that all kind of comes together. And so I really started to like that side of the business. And so I started researching, I started asking questions, I started talking to my general contractors, my CMs about like, hey, what are you doing? Just trying to, how do I better understand how to read blueprints and all of those aspects that come into construction.
On-the-job training.
Yeah. So I was doing that for a while nobody was really knowing that that's what I was really doing. But, my goal really, my passion was really starting to turn towards, the construction side of it. I still love the development side,
Mm-hmm.
but it was more like I really like this construction side of it. And so, 4 years ago, I decided to create Stillworks Construction. And I was very fortunate because we already had projects that I was working on.
Right,
so
through the integrated development
partner. So it was like I was, again, getting that on-the-job training and was able to start to develop my team and start to develop, processes and just really start to build the brand of Stillworks, because prior to that, I was focused on building the brand of IDP. So now I was trying to pivot to, okay, I don't want everybody to just know me as that anymore or as a developer. I want them to know me as Stillworks, and I want them to know me as a construction manager, and that we have a construction management firm. And so, we've been transitioning that over the last couple of years from branding and marketing and just really, for me, just reminding people, like, hey, I do this now. When people ask me what I do, I don't say I'm a developer anymore. Like I literally don't say that.
Really?
I say, I have a construction management company.
Okay.
And because that's my real focus.
Got it.
And so we've done
IDP
well.
still exist?
Yes, it still exists.
Okay.
Still owns assets. Still owns real estate. Still has projects. Nothing active, but we still have assets and projects that we own that are still in the portfolio. So yeah, it's still in existence. But my focus is really on building Stillworks to be a bigger brand, to be a bigger player in the market, and to really take it more state and more regional, meaning Mid-Atlantic region. And then, of course, probably a little bit in the Florida market as we also have a place down that way. So yeah.
Oh,
so that's
wow.
that's our
okay. So then Stillworks is global.
Not global, but definitely from PA to Florida is the goal, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we see it for where we want to be long term.
Mm-hmm. So how does this fit into like your personal purpose that you have for yourself?
So for personal purpose, I always see things like, I want to be able to build community, and that's on everything we do internally at Stillworks. It always is: are we building community? Are we building community? If it's not, then it's something that we probably don't want to do. And so that's more of our personal and more of my personal touch to what we do.
Yeah.
Is anything we do, I want it to be building community. And so there's no other better way, in my opinion, to do that other than to really be building your community up.
Right.
And it's so gratifying because I can actually physically see and touch what I do every day. And not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Not everybody can see, you start with raw land, and then you do your site work and your footers and your foundation, and you're building your foundation, and then your walls go up, and then your roof and your windows, and you enclose it, and then just to see it just mature over time into then livable space or workable space, that's that's really fulfilling to me. And then being able to do projects in my hometown, being from Harrisburg, it's always a blessing to be able to do projects, whether it's in the city of Harrisburg or Stilton or, whatever the case may be, is to be able to give back in a good way, in a positive way. So.
Yeah, and there's a lot of redevelopment going on and a lot of opportunity. So what would you say, okay, your purpose is to see yourself building community, right? Mm-hmm. And if you can't feel that, then you're just like, is that what you use as a litmus test is, okay, this is not the right project for me?
Yeah, we do. So one thing that I don't do is I don't do a project that a community doesn't want.
And how do you find out?
You find out pretty quick. People are not shy about letting you know what they don't like, right? So, whether it's the local municipality, the local officials, elected officials, whether it's the constituents that live in those communities, people are very passionate. I'll stick with the word passionate about what they do and what they don't like, right? Okay. So when people tell me what they don't like, then my first response back is, well, what do you like? Just don't always tell me what you don't like.
Right.
Anybody can tell you.
Come with the solution.
Yeah, anybody can just tell you what they don't like, but what is it that you actually do like? Mm-hmm. And usually that's where we can then start to find common ground. But if I'm just combating what you don't like, then we're never going to get anywhere. But if we can get to understanding, okay, here's what you do like, and here's what I'm trying to achieve, a lot of times you can come to some type of consensus with local officials and with the neighbors and constituents. But if for some reason I can't, and there seems to be a disconnect, then I'm gone. Mm-hmm. Because I never want to bring something to the community that isn't for the community and that the community doesn't feel as though it's for them. Because in a lot of these places, we come in Monday through Friday, 7 to 4, and we go home. These folks actually live here and have to see it 24/7, so to speak.
Fair. That's
and so
fair.
I always try to be mindful, and I learned that very early in my career, where I thought that, I have the vision for what you need in your community. You can't really tell someone what they need in their neighborhood. You know your neighborhood better than I do, but if I come into your neighborhood and say, well, this is what you need, no, we don't need that here. I live here. So I just try to be very mindful of that when we do projects. And so that's really my litmus test.
So is it possible with that same vein, because I see myself in you in that comment, only because of things that we're looking to do too. So is it possible that instead of saying that I see a need, is it possible to say, okay, here's an opportunity and help them buy into that vision? Right?
Yeah. Putting on my developer hat for a second, what I've tried to do in more recent years is meet with local elected officials and say, hey, look, I do see opportunity in your community. What do you need? What do you want? Mm-hmm. What's important to you? Mm-hmm. And I've seen that work. And a lot of elected officials will be like, wow, no one's ever asked us what we think. So I don't try to come in with a preconceived, here's what I want to do, here's what I'm going to put here. I try to start off with, what are you looking for? What do you need? What are you trying to see in your community to develop your community?
Right.
And then sometimes you got to have that real conversation with them and say, well, that's not going to work. I got people that will say, well, we want a Whole Foods. Whole Foods not coming here. We just got to be honest. But I'm glad you're telling me, here's what we want. And then, but that starts.
If.
Correct. But here's the other things you have to do to be able to get to that point, because here's what Whole Foods is going to look for. Here's what Trader Joe's is going to look for. Here's what Starbucks is going to look for. They're going to want to see a certain amount of vehicles. They're going to want to see a certain income level. They're going to see certain things that they're going to look for that we know. So if that's the goal, that's fine. That's the goal. But here's some other things that we're going to need to do along the way.
Right. And along with that need, too, sometimes we don't know what is needed.
Correct.
Right. So then, and we're ignorant just because we don't have the resources, or we don't understand it, or we don't have the time to understand it.
Sure.
Right. Because there's other things that are more important. So I do think that people like yourself, right, do have a responsibility to make people aware.
Sure.
Like, hey, this is what you know, could potentially work. This is what we're seeing in other areas that look similar to yours, right? But the same number of people that live there, that could be successful. So I do applaud you for that, because I do think there's a huge responsibility behind that.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, because knowledge is power. So a lot of people, they don't really know the process. And sometimes, you know, people will look at the end result and forget about the process that you went through to get there. And that could be said about someone personally. You know, they could look at you and be like, wow, I want to be Erica, but they don't know the struggle you've been through for 10 plus years to get there.
Yeah.
They just focus on that end result. And the same is to be true about development, is that it's development. It develops over time. And so people could say, like, you know, hey, I want my community to look like Lidditz, or I want my community to look like, you know, Camp Hill, or whatever they're inspiring to be. But it's like, all right, but we just can't jump right to that. So what do we have to do? We have to cover the basics first. Do we have good health care? Do we have, you know, access to food? Do we have access to transportation? Do we have, what does our housing stock look like? You know, do we have apartments? Do we have single family homes? Do we have programs to help older homes get rehabbed? Do we have all these things in place? Because then once we start doing those things, now we can look at the next bigger picture and the next goal. But sometimes we just skip all of that, and then we want to go right to the end result. And
it takes a long time.
It's a process.
It takes a long time.
Process.
So, and I've learned that too, looking at different things, because you want it to happen right away.
Yeah.
And depending on how big of a change that you're looking to make, it could take upwards of like 5 years, and sometimes even 10
Even more.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because of all of the, I'll call it red tape, if you will, that you have to go through. And then just the mindset of people that are living there. And then also how some people may want to protect what they already have, don't understand that there's a way to make it even better.
Correct.
So yeah. So in your upbringing, like, how has that helped you, like, get you into your career choice that you're in? Like, how has that affected you?
I mean, there was no direct correlation towards any of that.
Wait a second, you just stumbled on it?
It's a stumbled process. It's a stumbled process. Since I was young, I've always been competitive. You know, I grew up playing sports. I was fortunate. I was a good basketball player. Played at Central Dauphin East. Went on and you know, moved on to Morgan State.
You broke some records, right?
I did.
Yes.
I did.
Hall of Famer.
Yes. Yeah. And I still hold the men's record for points. And I think I've been out of school 20-something years. And I always said to myself, if I hold it for 2 years, I'll be good. Like, it's been 20-something years, 20-something years later. So I think a lot of where I'm at now, the correlation probably just goes to my competitiveness, my preparedness, and just being disciplined. And, you know, that goes a lot to, you know, my parents, my mom and my dad. My dad was very big on discipline. He was very big on structure, and he pushed me in those areas to be, you know, disciplined. Like, you know, he would always say, like, that's half the battle, is if you show up prepared and disciplined, then whatever talent you bring just is an add-on. And so I've always kind of lived by those principles of you know, just being disciplined, being prepared. And my mom really gave me the soft skills piece.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, she always taught me the piece of, you know, put God first, treat everybody fairly, treat everyone with respect. You know, you're no better than the next person. And so she kind of gave me those kind of soft skills that I think are, you know, needed for anyone to be, you know, successful in their career, no matter what that career is. But, you know, for me, I started off in banking. I started off in commercial banking at Commerce Bank. I fell in love with commercial real estate. And so within my portfolio, you know, I had several construction companies. I had development companies. And I kind of just fell in love with putting those deals together and understanding how they worked and understanding, you know, how business worked, how to manage cash flow. And you know, when I was an analyst, you know, that's what I did. I analyzed businesses and I would pretty much grade them like, okay, this business is doing well because they're doing these 3 or 4 things. This business is doing bad because of these things. And so when I got into business for myself, and even when I was a CEO before I went out on my own, I always kept that in the back of my head was, all right, how would I, if putting on my analyst hat, how would I evaluate where I'm at? And I'm always going to be more critical of myself than anybody, but I would always think, okay, where's my business at, and where do I need to focus to continue to get it to the next level? What does that look like? What's needed from an operational perspective? And so like that, that really was my jump start, to be honest. And then I wanted to leave banking for a while because I just knew long term it wasn't fulfilling me. Like it was a great start to my career. The skills that I learned during that period, I wouldn't be where I'm at without them. But I just knew it wasn't like, I didn't get that purpose.
Right.
And so I went on and I, through just some contacts, I was able to get into economic development in Cumberland County. And so I was the CEO of the county's economic development and tourism arm and industrial development arm. And then we also had a real estate arm. And what we did in the real estate arm was there were certain projects that private developers just didn't want to take on because they had environmental issues. They were old manufacturing buildings that had a lot of asbestos, mold, anything that had a whole bunch of red tape and hairy situations. Most private developers was like, well, I can go develop that over there where it doesn't have any of those issues. Why do I want to deal with this? And so we found that there was a need, and so we created a nonprofit development company to fill that need. So basically what we did was we bought up old buildings, like we bought the old Lemoyne Middle School was a great example.
Okay.
We bought that, had been sitting for 5 or 6 years, deteriorated.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
you made condos out of it?
And then we sold it to a private developer. We went in, we got some money for it, did a lot of asbestos removal, and then we sold it to a private, and we got some grant money, like a couple $1 million in grant money, got it all ready, and then sold it to a private developer.
Okay.
So we did all the early heavy lifting to then get it to a point where a developer could come in and then just take it from there. And so that's what we did, and we created that entity, and it's still doing very, very well with what they're doing over there. But that was where I really started to get into, okay, I really do like development.
Right.
Because that's what we were doing as a nonprofit agency. But then I just always felt like, all right, I kind of did this, but like there's more. Mm-hmm. There's more, and there's a bigger purpose, there's a greater purpose. And so I was getting that itch of like, okay, I think I've done everything that I could do here.
Right.
And I knew it was kind of time to move on. So I was like, all right, what do I want to go do next? And so I was fortunate because I had a lot of different offers. I had offers to get back into banking as an executive. I had offers to be a lobbyist because I was in economic development, so you're in that political space. And so I had opportunities to get into that. And then there was this like little opportunity to get in and go on my own. Now the other two were financially very lucrative, really no risk, right? What's the risk here?
Right.
So I decided to box those and then, decided to go onto my own. So
because of the competition.
I think the competition, but I felt like for me it was more about purpose. People can flash a couple of dollars in front of you, and it was enticing because it'd be like, oh man, like all right, I could do well for myself, or I could take this risk and still do well for myself. But are you willing to take the risk? And I felt like I was at that crossroads of purpose versus being comfortable. And so I said, I'm going to take the road of being uncomfortable, and I'm going to take this risk and see where it goes.
Can you just stop right there? Just say that one more time, because that is huge. A lot of people are afraid to take risks, right? Mm-hmm. But if you don't truly know who you are mm-hmm. and live in your purpose, you're just going to live life, just living life just to get by.
Yeah.
But what you just said was, hey, look, I'm willing to take this risk because I'm truly living in my purpose. And it's something that I truly wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So because of that, and you were strategic too, because all of the things that you've done in the past was setting you up for the opportunity.
It happened that way. I didn't plan it, but yes.
Right.
And that's the part
not by
because
accident, though.
Correct, but that was God's plan. It wasn't mine. Because people do say like, oh man, like when I hear your story, like everything lined up to where now I see why you're doing what you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't have that roadmap. That wasn't my roadmap. It was God's roadmap. I just was fortunate that I listened to that roadmap. But to your point, most people, when they don't want to take risks is because they haven't found their purpose. And so when you take risks with no purpose, it's extremely daunting, because what's the purpose behind it? I'm going to take this risk, but I don't understand the greater purpose, because most people think, well, it's about the money, right? But, and you know this, people who have money, a lot of times they're not happy. A
lot of people are miserable.
They're miserable.
With the money.
And I learned that, like, people that I know that have the most money, a lot of times they're not happy, because they were doing what they were doing for money and not for purpose.
Right.
And so when you get the money just creates more problems, more headaches, more issues, more liabilities, more things that can go wrong. Mm-hmm. That's the downside of money that most people don't realize. They just think, oh, you got money, you got to be happy. And people say that to me. They're like, oh, you're fine, you got money. I'm like, it's the complete opposite. When I had less money, I was actually more comfortable, because I didn't have all the other risk and liabilities out there on a daily basis.
You need to say that again, because people think just because you make it easy, right, that they too can actually do it and you're comfortable.
Correct.
The higher you get up, you want to get to a point where you do feel like I'm comfortable, right? I've set myself up so I can live the life that I choose to. Uh-huh. But it's not easy. It's
Correct.
Not easy, because you have, the higher up you go, right, the more responsibility you have. Mm-hmm. And it's more than likely there's others that's underneath you depending on you as well.
People are depending on you.
People depending on you.
People are depending on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was sick for 2 days, and a couple people on my team kept asking me, like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, why y'all keep asking me I'm okay? They're like, because we need you. You know what I mean? It's like those subtle reminders that, like, people are truly depending on you for their livelihood.
Right.
And that's a big responsibility to hold, because it's not only my team, but it's all my subcontractors. Mm-hmm. They're relying on us to perform so they can get paid.
Correct. So if you weren't in your purpose,
correct,
you'd be like, you know what? On a bad day, I'm out of here.
I'm out. No, I'll go do something else.
But because this is bigger than you.
It's bigger than me.
You're like, okay, so I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
Let's work this through. Yeah.
There's a lot of days, and you're an entrepreneur too. There's a lot of days where I'm like, man, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want to deal with this today. And I would be okay. I have enough skills. I know enough people. I'll be fine. I've done well for myself, so I would be fine. But what puts you over the hump to continue, even when you don't want to, is the purpose, that it's bigger than you, it's bigger than me, it's bigger than what we're doing. We're building community, we're building people, we're improving lives. I got to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's what gets you out of the bed when you don't want to get out of the bed, or when you have to work late, or you got to be up early, or you got to answer a phone call on a Saturday or Sunday when you just really wanted to relax that day, or or someone stops you in the grocery store and wants to talk business, but you really don't want to talk about business at the moment, but you do it because
right.
it's bigger than you.
It's bigger than you. Yeah. To whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah.
So then, how do you keep yourself in a good, like, a mental space, right? Because as entrepreneurs, sometimes, like, the burden gets really heavy.
Sure.
So how do you keep your mind sharp, keep yourself in good physical condition? How do you are able to show up for your family and your friends?
Yeah.
Right, without being like the ogre, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, how do you keep yourself?
So that's a really good question, because when people say what keeps you up at night, or what do you worry about the most, or what's the hardest part of what you do, it has nothing to do with what I actually do.
Right.
It's not construction. It's not managing people, and that can be difficult. But it's those aren't the things that, like, worry me. What worries me the most is me keeping myself spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally in good health to be able to then do everything that I'm able to do. Because, we do have a lot going on. I do have a lot going on, but I don't do it by myself. I do it with a team of people. But I have to be mentally ready every day to help them do what we do.
And how you do it.
To be successful. So I have a really good ritual that I've been with for about 15 years now.
15 years?
I've been doing it for 15
years. I
years.
thought you were going to say 15 days.
Yeah, 15. I'm 15 years.
That's
I'm 15 years strong with it. But
yes.
I wake up at 5 a.m. Or a little bit before. I go to the gym, so I work out. In the morning, I do my cardio. I do about 20 minutes of devotional. I meditate. I pray every morning, and I usually listen to a podcast. So I used to go to the gym in the morning, and I would, listen to rap, whatever I want to listen to. And in the last 2-3 years, I've switched that to where I listen to different podcasts. Some of them are religious based. Some of them are business entrepreneurial based. And all of that is so that and I try to get it all done by 7 o'clock. So my kids wake up at 7, then we get to school. So I try to do it all before they get up so that I am mentally prepared for everybody for the day. First with me, then with my wife and kids, and then it's on to everybody else and everything else I have to do that day. But I got to be done by 7 o'clock, because if you don't, then you're chasing his tail, because then the day is now started and problems have started, things have started. My kids maybe not in a good mood that morning, and so so what I try to tell people that are kind of like, I can't figure this out, and I always ask them, when do you start your day? Well, the kids usually come in and wake me up. No, that's the first problem.
There you
Your
go.
kids are coming. Your kids are beating you to the punch. You haven't had you time yet. And you got to have that time to yourself, spiritually, emotionally, physically, if you really want to get a jump start on your day. And so, I've been strong with that pretty religiously. There are times every once in a while where I'll do a lot of that, and then I'll go to the gym after I take the kids. So I do switch it up every once in a while, but for the most part, for the last 15 years, I've been consistent with between 5 and 7. It's me time, and here's what I got to get done with that.
Win the morning, you win the day.
You win the morning, you win the day. Yeah, and it's just putting you in the right perspective, because as an entrepreneur, you don't know what's going to happen to you that day. And I was telling you this morning about what I ran into this morning. I didn't know that was coming when I woke up this morning, but by the time I had to deal with it, I was ready. Mentally, I was ready for the day, and so I was like, okay, this was hitting me at 7:15 in the morning. All right, let's deal with it. And then we got it resolved. So that's just how I've tried to juggle it all. And then I've also tried to, but what I have done is learn to delegate, and then really focus on what decisions and what do I really need to do in a day to move the needle. And I try to limit that to like 3 or 4 things that I got to get done. And I call them, they're my impactful things. And so every morning I jot down on my phone in my notes, what's impactful? Like, what do I got to get done today to move the needle? Not all the other stuff that you got to do in your to-do list. And, we all got those things. And a lot of that's busy work. So if you sit back and you really look at that to-do list, a big chunk of it is like stuff that somebody else really should be doing. You really shouldn't be doing it, or it shouldn't even be on the list. And then you start to shrink that list, and then you really look at, okay, what do I really need to do to grow my business?
And I think that's huge for entrepreneurs to know that.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional with managing your day. One, win the morning, get yourself prepared for whatever may come before even open up emails.
Yeah.
Don't even, do not disturb.
Yeah.
Right? And then start your day. And then I like to start from the night before. So then when I get done with that morning ritual and I'm able to, I know exactly what I need to do.
Yeah.
I also throw in there gratitude. I have to put in there something that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Because it's whatever you focus on expands. And if you're focusing on the drama that may come up, or, dealing with a disgruntled employee or team member, that really can just mess with your psyche. So it's intentional that for me, I have to sit there until I can think of at least 2 things, 3 things on a great day that I'm grateful for. Because then I'm like, okay, good. I got myself centered. Let's go. Let's go.
I have a planner. I forget who got it for me, but at the top of it, it does say, today I am grateful for, and then you got to fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And so I do that every day. I just started it. Someone got me a 2024 planner for every day in the year. And so it is something that I want to be able to carry on as I go into 2025. And it's something I picked up this year only because somebody got me the planner, and at the top it says, I am grateful for, and then I fill in the blank.
Yeah.
So I think that is a really good way to start the day.
What about your children? I know that the age ranges you got a big gap in there, right?
Yeah.
So do you see them going into your business?
My 18-year-old, I'm super, super proud dad. He's a senior at Susquehanna. He wants to get into international politics. He just did a civic government panel yesterday with Representative Patty Kim and Tim DeFleur and Justin Fleming and a bunch of other local elected officials. So I'm really, it's really good to see him kind of come into his own at such a really young age, and really excel, and do his thing. And so, he's off doing his political thing of what he loves. He
might be the lobbyist.
He might be, and some of the schools. So he wants to be in either D.C. or New York.
Oh, that'd be
nice.
So
those are the schools that we're looking at in those areas that really play to what he wants to do. No, he doesn't want to look at Morgan State. He did apply for Hampton.
Oh, that's awesome.
He did apply at Hampton.
Okay.
But he likes Columbia, Georgetown, Hofstra. Yes. American University, George Washington, NYU. So he loves the D.C. and New York schools.
Yeah.
And so I'm very fortunate with his progression and what he's doing. And then I dropped down to a 9-year-old, and my 9-year-old is we're a lot alike. We're very similar in personalities and drive, and he's my sports kid, so he's in the basketball. We're in football right now.
Okay, so he's your competitor.
Yeah. So he's in the football right now. He plays for the Little Crusaders, and then we got basketball coming up, and I'm the basketball coach, so we have basketball coming up in a couple of months. But very smart kid, does very well. I'm just blessed. My kids they're very good kids. They're very polite. They're just good kids.
Right.
And so we're very fortunate from that perspective. And then my youngest, he turned 4 today.
Oh, happy
birthday. So he loves trucks. He goes to school with his little construction hat, and even this morning he's like, I got my loader, Dad. I got my loader. So he's infatuated by big trucks and construction equipment and all those things. But I always tell my kids, and no matter what you do, whether it's your education, whether it's your career, whether it's sports, I want them all to experience life the way that they want to and pursue their passions.
Good for you.
And don't be led by what I did.
Right.
My path was my path.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't feel forced to play sports because that's what I did, or go to this kind of school because that's what I did, or get into construction because that's what I did, or follow your own path and your own purpose. And
that's right.
And so with each of them, I try to really lock in on where I think their passion is and help bring it out of them. And if it has nothing to do with what I do, great.
Right.
I am 100% okay with that.
Right.
I don't need to be 5th generation of anything, or even 2nd generation of anything, as long as they're happy and as long as they're pursuing what they want to do and what their purpose is in their life.
Right.
And so yeah. And
you're a role model. So just that alone, having a role model in their life, having a dad in their life, because a lot of men, they are absent from their children.
Yeah.
That's going to be a huge impact on their life. Like it really is.
Yeah. So we try to, we try to make sure that they're, God is first. Education is there, that you have all the soft skills, and giving them the best opportunities that we can to help them be successful, but then also be humble in that process, and just know it's a process.
Right.
And I preach that to, my kids daily. It's a process. It's a process. You start off, you're not going to start off being the man. You're not going to start off being here. And if you are, for some reason, because God has just gifted you that way, we still have a long way to go. And we still got to, daily improve 1%. If we can do a little bit better today than we did yesterday. And just, it's a process. And so that's the way that I always try to present it, to my kids is, even my son who's going to be going off to college is, I always tell him, like, bro, you're going to start all over again.
Yeah.
You've made your mark here at Susquehanna. You're student government president. He was homecoming king. You were all those things, but you weren't that in ninth grade. You built yourself up.
Right.
And then you got to the top of that mountain. But guess what? When you go be a freshman in college, you got to start all over again.
All over.
And so there's levels to it, and it's levels to what we do. You get to a certain point, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to take the next jump up. Well, you're not the big dog at the next level. You're starting at the bottom, and you work your way up again. So yeah.
That's awesome. That was great. So what would you say to the person that wants to get into your industry? What would you recommend that they do? And how can someone get in contact with you too? Should they want to use you, for your business? Your business.
So the first thing I would tell people, if they want to get into construction or development, is check why you want to. Because construction and real estate, and you can understand this very well, being an agent and having your own team, is that for a lot of people, because they can physically see it, they just think, I want to go do that and I can hop in, right? And so a lot of people come to me, oh my God, so many people come to me and say, like, I want to be a real estate agent. I'm like, why?
Yeah, why? Yeah.
And it's like, because I want to make some extra money. Wrong answer. Because most real estate agents do not make money.
Yeah.
50, 60% of them do not make money.
Right.
Probably more than that. There's probably like 10 or 20% of y'all that make money.
Yep.
Others do not make money. So that is the wrong answer to why you want to get into our space. But again, people see it. And so they think, okay, I want to latch on. Also people come to me and they're like, I see what you do. I want to go do it. And I'm like, why? You know what I mean? So I always tell people, if you want to get into development, if you want to get into construction, if you want to get into real estate, it truly has to be your purpose.
It definitely has to be
your purpose.
Because
this game is not easy. It's very cutthroat. It's very tight. It's very competitive. It's very unknown. There's a lot of dynamics that come into play, other brokers, finances, banks, you name it. And it's a lot. And so again, when you go to the 10 or 15 to 20% who are successful and you actually see what their day-to-day looks like, you may really not want to be in this space, in this business.
Yeah, are you sure you want to do this?
And you're sure you want to do it. So I think that's the first litmus test is you have to check why you really want to do it and check your ego. Why am I doing this? Am I doing it for attention? Am I doing it for audience? Am I doing it for money? And I think a lot of people are in that space. They want to get into this space for those reasons. Mm-hmm. But if someone comes to me and say, look, I really want to build my community and here's what I want to do, and I can tell that it seems very genuine. Mm-hmm. It's so wide open as far as what you can get into and how you get into that space. Some people have gotten into construction and have built construction companies because they were slanging a hammer somewhere. That's the furthest thing from what I've done. I don't really even have too many hammers in my house.
Right.
So I'm going to hire somebody to come to my house to fix that.
Right.
I can look at someone and be like, oh, you need to do X, Y, Z, because I've seen it a million times over. But if you give me the hammer and say, we'll go do it, I can't do that.
Right.
So you just got to look at where your skill sets lie, mm-hmm. and then balance that with others around you that make up for what you don't have skills in. So in development and in construction, because there's so many facets to it, you can attack it from different angles, but you got to have some baseline skill set to get into the space. For me, it was finances and me understanding business from that angle and understanding, okay, here's how a construction company should run. Here's how a development company should run. Here's a good asset to buy. I have those skill sets because that's what I went to school for.
Right.
When I started off as an analyst, I spent 2 years doing nothing but evaluating companies and businesses. And so that was my skill set. So I never lost sight of that. But when I got into construction and I got into development, I said, okay, well, I need to bring people in with me that have the skills and the knowledge that I don't have.
Surround yourself
and
with
you
the
surround
people.
yourself with the people, and that's where the humility comes in at, that you have to have that humility to say, here's what I do know, and here's what I don't know, and here's where I need help. And you go seek those people that can be helpful with you to then make you well-rounded. But I've seen some people get into the space and they know just one little piece, but they don't bring the other people in they need to get them to understand the rest.
Right.
Because they're trying to do it themselves. And so, I've just always tried to surround myself with people that can help me grow. And, people have said to me sometimes, not directly, but indirectly, like, oh, well, you got started because you had that person with you, And I'll be like, yeah, I did. And?
Right.
I didn't do this by myself. And I had God with me too, so what are we talking about? Like, so yeah, I did have those people with me because I realized I couldn't do it on my own. I'm not self-made. I don't even know. To me, I don't even really know what that means.
Yeah.
I'm not self-made.
You can go further with others. People have to understand that.
Yeah. I'm not self-made because I didn't do this by myself. I didn't build this by myself. I'm not growing this by myself. I am growing it with the most talented people I can find around me. Accountants, lawyers, construction people. I try to go after the best talent I can find as far as construction people. Like, I want the best of the best that I can afford, that I can have.
Right.
Because it's only going to make us elevate. And so, if I could give people advice, check your why. Why are you doing this? Does it fit into your purpose? And if it does, then understand, okay, here's my skill set and here's what I bring to this table. And then bring others to the table that you need to be able to make that full circle. And I think once you do that, and it aligns with your purpose, then you just got to be willing to take that risk.
That's awesome. Okay, so who should be getting in contact with you?
Man, that's a good question. It's difficult for me to try to be helpful to people a lot of times because my time is limited. And I truly
now,
try to work on
mentor aspect, like for business, like what's the type of person that should call Steelworks Construction? I do apologize.
Okay. All right.
We were talking about like how can someone get into the business? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, but if I'll finish that thought. Yeah. I'll finish the first thought and then I'll go on to the second part. So, what I've always tried to explain to people is that, I feel like everyone should get a mentor. And I do feel like mentorship is very important. It's important to me, and I have a few mentors that I have. But what I've always tried to balance out is, your mentor should be someone that's not like 10 steps ahead of you, but maybe 1 or 2. That don't see you as a threat, that then you guys can somehow work together in some capacity to where there's a mutual benefit, but they're also mentoring you. That sounds complicated. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But that's what I've always tried to do. I've always tried to find like people that are a little bit ahead of me that don't see me as a threat, that just wanted to help me, but I'm bringing value along the way. And so therefore, it wasn't feeling like it was a burden to them, or wasted their time, or I got to carve out time for this. Because I understand that people are busy. So I do feel like everyone needs mentors. And I don't think it's a bad thing to try to shoot for somebody to be like where you ultimately want to be. But I feel like when you do that, sometimes you miss the process in between.
Right.
Because then again, you're looking at, I want to be that. But yeah, to get there, you got 10 more years to go probably, give or take. Or not years. I don't like to value things by years or time. But like you got these steps to get before you can get there. And so I think that's critically important. So I do think people should find a mentor. I do think, and like I said, when I see people out, I'm always trying to, helpful. Or if people drop me a line, or I'm always trying to respond back as quick as I can. Like, hey, I got this thought, or can I get 5 minutes of your time? Like, I try to make time for that to try to help people out. But then I also try to tell people, like, who else is in your circle that maybe, could give you a little bit more time, because there's things that you guys could be doing together.
Right.
So I think that that's always kind of critically important. But as far as business-wise, we do smaller projects. We're commercial. So we don't do like a home renovation. If someone says, "Hey, I want to finish my basement," that's not what we do.
Right.
But if somebody wanted to build a home, if somebody wants to build like a multi-unit, if somebody wants to renovate multi-units, so anything that's more commercial based.
Okay.
If people wanted to buy office space, office buildings, we do a lot of tenant fit out stuff. So, people bought, I'm leasing an office, but I got to do the inside space. We come in and we do that. We do medical. And there's a couple other areas that I'm super excited about that we're looking at that I think that's part of our goal to get to that next level, as far as, spreading our wings a little bit and going a little north, south, east, and west. But yeah, anybody that has what I would consider a commercial project, that's either multi-unit or commercial in theory, is really who our clients are. We have some institutional clients that we do work for, schools, university, corporations, and so we try to be as diversified as possible and be very thoughtful in the kind of projects we take on. But again, it's all about building community, and that's where we kind of start from.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
This was a great conversation, and hopefully you all agreed. If you have any comments or just words of praise, or want to get in contact with Jonathan Bowser, just put those in the comments and we'll make sure that we get you connected with them. And we'll also give you a link to his company so you can see exactly what he does in the community, although he did a great job explaining that right now. But I really did enjoy you. Thank you so much.
As well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you
having
so
me on.
much. You're welcome. And you know what, y'all, until next time, we'll see you.